It's
I
all-
knew it. All right, let's have a fantastic show. Here we go.
The following program is being brought to you on the Voice America Variety Channel. For more information about our network and to check our additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericavariety.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
Welcome to the Forbes Factor, featuring celebrity TV host, million-dollar entrepreneur, and renowned health and fitness superstar, Forbes Riley. A familiar face from TV, as well as one of today's most sought-after female motivational speakers today. You'll connect with some of the top experts in health and fitness, business and personal development, as well as some surprise celebrities, all sharing their insight, tips, and tricks to finding true happiness. Now, here's your host, Forbes Riley.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Forbes Factor, which is my absolute favorite hour of the week right here on Voice America. And, you know, one of the games we play is where in the world is Forbes Riley? Well, today I am in my beautiful, cozy home, but I'm getting ready to get on a plane all month long. And I'm heading off to Salt Lake and Phoenix and Charlotte and Vegas and LA. Who knows? Like, that's the cool thing about being a speaker. So I'm very, very excited about this. I have a very special show. I've invited three very close friends on to participate and just share thoughts, feelings. They are successful in their own right, and I think you're going to absolutely love meeting them. I don't normally do this, but because we're so packed, I'm going to jump right in, and I'm going to introduce you to a very dear friend, an old friend of mine. Not that he's that old, but you know what I mean. I think it was a mutual friend who introduced us. Kind of an anomaly when you meet him. His name is an anomaly. Hi, my name is Buck. Like Buck Parker. It sounds like it's out of a movie, and I'm going to bring him right on the stage. So, Buck, why don't you come up here and join me? That's a kind of a funny intro. Because when I first met you, not only trauma surgeon, top of his class, phenomenal skier, and then he goes and he stars on a TV series called The Island. And I've been a fan and a friend. How long do you think it's been?
10 plus years, yeah.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Do we owe this to
John Maple.
there you go, the one and only phenomenal photographer. He just said, you guys need to meet. I remember our first meeting. It was like, wow, I just adore this guy, just the energy and who you are.
Thanks.
What do you think makes you so special?
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know if I've got that question very much, but I think I am maybe curious. And I just love everything, and I love life, and I look at it as a gift, and like every day, that's how I feel. It's like, wow, this is an amazing thing that we get to experience. And then everything in life is also so unique and amazing. And so I don't know, that's how I look at it.
Well, no, and I know we've spent a lot of time talking. I need to explain to the audience, and you really need to dive deep a little bit. But you're a trauma surgeon. You're not a typical surgeon like you book an appointment for a knee, and we'll do that 3 weeks. You're standing in the ER. People are coming to you in the direst of situations, and I know that you were this calm among the storm. First of all, did you want to be doing this?
I think that, when I went to med school or decided to go, I want to go to med school, I didn't necessarily decide I wanted to be in trauma surgery, but I did want to go into surgery. That was clear, like when I was like 17 or so. I think I saw a documentary on some surgeons, and I can't remember what kind of surgeon they were, but I was like, man, these guys are the coolest thing I've ever seen. And, I want to do this. So, but along the way in med school and residency, you kind of sort out what you're going to do. And I was just drawn to that emergency sort of stuff because, as a kid, I wanted to be like Superman, right? You want to jump in and save everybody and do all that stuff. And I was always like sort of an adrenaline junkie. And so all those things fit together to do, basically emergency and trauma surgery.
So, it's funny because in college or in high school, I was the top of my class, and you had two choices back in those days: doctor, lawyer. I'm like, I don't like blood, lawyer. And it was really that simple. Does it not bother you? Like, I actually think about the idea of physically cutting into somebody, and I was like, oh, even the frog thing made me nuts.
Yeah. It never, when I was younger, my dad was into hunting, and so he'd take me hunting, and then you have to field dress the animal. And so I like sort of learned really young. And that's sort of what also sparked my interest, is seeing all the organs and things, trying to figure out what this stuff was. But so I was really never grossed out by that stuff. But I will say that, you know, you know, when you start residency or med school and you're starting to do those things and pierce the skin and make an incision, first incision, it's a little bit weird at first. I think for most people.
Oh wait, we just lost you. You know what?
I unmuted myself.
I'm on the edge of my seat. For most people,
yeah.
what?
Like I know a trauma surgeon who her first surgery as a med student, she passed out, right? And it was just, it's weird. It's a weird thing. Nobody really gets to see that, so you have different reactions, and that's okay. But she became a trauma surgeon after that, so sure we can.
At first, they say thank you for your service for people who serve in the service. Thank you, for all the surgeons that are willing to do, I think, what I would never be able to do. Although I do think it's fascinating to see how everything inside works. I think it's a bit beyond my scope. So
yeah, it definitely takes a special person.
Now, okay, and we have such a limited time with you today.
Yeah.
You got cast on the TV series The Island. I remember this. I was like, oh my gosh, you go. Where they threw all of you on an island and you needed to survive, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
You did really well on this. I watched you.
I mean, it's not easy. I thought it was going to be easy. I thought they don't really make you starve on these TV shows. Come on. And then sure enough, we starved to death. Basically, we averaged, I would guess, about 100 to 200 calories a day for like 30 days on that, just because you're trying, you're gathering things. Of course, you're trying to fish, you're trying to catch animals and trying to eat coconuts and all this other stuff, but really you don't do a lot. And I think we ate real meals probably like twice during that month. We actually had a pig one like 12 days in, and then a caiman one of the last days. So those were the only real meals, and the other days we're eating, kind of like muscle type of things.
Well, we watched a lot of people fall apart on that show. What big lesson, big takeaway from that for you?
The big takeaway from that program, or that whole experience, was that humans are so adaptable. Like when we started, we had no idea what we were doing. And by the end, we're like living on an island, like having a routine and sleeping in our little cots or whatever we made. And so I think it's just such a stark contrast between the person that you started out to be there and your knowledge and what you could do. And only 30 days later, like you're completely adapted to this like island lifestyle that, I mean, if you go too long eating 100 calories a day, that's not going to work. But besides that, we kind of figured everything else out.
Yeah, it was actually very much fun to watch. Is that still streamable somewhere that people could watch you do this?
It's on Amazon still.
All right, it's called The Island, and it's definitely worth watching because, like any of those shows, all that you went through, and what it was fun, I obviously know you, but it was that you're calm. You're, a lot of other people are freaking out, and I'm like, the trauma surgeon brain kicked in, going, I can handle some pretty crazy stuff. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in real trauma surgery, we have gunshot wounds and stabbings and things like that, people dying. It's pretty crazy. And so when you sort of meet all the other, or you see other sort of emergencies, they're not quite as scary as when somebody's dying in front of you.
You, during COVID, had a shift where you went from being this top-notch trauma surgeon to entrepreneurship. Do you want to share as little or as much as you want to?
Yeah. So, I built up a social media presence and YouTube and Instagram, try to teach kids what it's like to be a doctor, how, what I thought about when I was in medical school, how I made decisions, things like that. And that was awesome. And I loved just interacting with that audience. And, during COVID, in the beginning, nobody knew what was going on. And so the number one thing I promote on my YouTube and Instagram was just like, think for yourself. If you're going to be a physician, because those kids were like, hey, what's the most important thing if I'm going to be a doctor? It's like, well, you have to have the confidence to think for yourself and raise your hand in front of 1,000 people and say, I think this is wrong. I think all you guys are wrong. Because, your patients need that, right? If everybody else is wrong and you just go along with it, the patient dies, like that's a problem. So you have to be able to think for yourself. And so during that time in COVID, I was just thinking for myself and thinking like these things don't make sense, which some of those things that I said were, I was incorrect, but some of them I was correct. And I ended up getting fired for that. So that was a really interesting thing. I was during COVID, I was just really disappointed in the healthcare system and a lot of physicians in general, because I thought that they were more self thinkers. I thought that they would think for themselves a lot more than they did. A lot of them did. So and certainly some of them did and all that, but I was disappointed and disenchanted, I guess, with medicine. But I was already had other business. I had done a few other business, like e-commerce businesses, multi-million-dollar e-commerce businesses in the past. And that at that time, I started mining Bitcoin. I got interested in blockchain and Bitcoin a few years prior to that and started doing that. And I was doing so well. When they fired me, I was making more doing that than I was as a surgeon. And so I thought, well, maybe this is my chance to take a little break and see how, the outside life is. And 3 months turned to 6 months and turned to a year, and now it's been like 3 years, and I haven't gone back yet. So I just keep going down the road of blockchain right now. So it's been really fun.
Well, I want to bring to the stage a dear friend of mine who is also a holistic RN, and I thought it'd be fun for you guys to meet and have a little dialogue conversation. Sure. I can bring to the stage Miss Faye Brunel. Faye, come on up here. So what have you, nice to say hi to Mr. Buck Parker. Faye, what do you think of what you've been listening to?
I think it's kind of interesting. We both know you to be very intuitive, Forbes, and you lined us up perfectly because, having the courage to say, I think the system might be wrong, and you have to think for yourself is a recurring theme in my life as well.
So holistic RN, what does that mean versus regular RN for you?
When I was in nursing school, the first semester, I realized we were going to talk about diseases for 4 years. And I thought, ew, not what I signed on for. I thought I was going to learn about healing. And that wasn't in the curriculum. So I made my own curriculum. I passed the boards for the medical system, but I also took on teachers and gurus that taught me about energy medicine and healing and, how you set the stage for someone to truly have deep quality of life. And that's been my gig for 45 years.
So now as a trauma surgeon, that's not quite the role. Your goal is to fix things quickly, Buck. But how do you feel about that in terms of, is there something that both of you would change in our medical training?
I mean, what she's doing is fantastic. She's thinking for herself. She liked some of it, didn't like some of it, decided to find her own answers. That's all anybody can hope for in a healthcare provider, I think.
But do they teach you that there's, I remember, this is me personally, my big experience with hospitals and doctors, my dad was in the hospital for 3 years in high school. So I spent a lot of time hanging out with doctors and nurses and people who were coming and going. And then also in my college was real big medical school. And I watched residencies and 72-hour things. And it was like, maybe this is why people don't have bedside manner when they graduate, because they're kind of pissed off they had to work so hard.
Yes, that's exactly why they're not so nice sometimes. Yeah.
Well, and you also have a big bill at the end of it that you need to, pay back.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I think in training, maybe a more breadth of the entire world. Let's take my training is just in the US. So I think maybe exposure to the entire world or history of medicine would be a little bit better to open our eyes a little bit more. It's so big though, right? It's so vast. Like there's so much information, and every day there's more information. So it's very tough to say, well, we got to get more information in these kids. But maybe a little bit of exposure to open their eyes, I think.
Faye, what is your experience in the doctor-nurse relationship?
It depends on the doctors you're talking about. I taught a lot of, when I taught nursing, I was in the hospital teaching clinical skills, and I was working with surgeons most of the time, which tend to be a little crankier. No offense, Puck.
Oh, they are.
They sometimes can be tough to live with, but I could give them wide berth and respect them. Their expertise is incredible, and that deserves respect. But it's kind of a weird setup that nurses look at patients one way and doctors look at them another way. And I had this reiterated to me recently when I was in the hospital as a patient, that the doctors were coming on one way and then the nurses were coming in saying, hold that thought, because if you want quality of life, then you need to be strong here and choose what you want for your life, not what they're recommending always. And I think that's hard for people who are in the bed depending on the doctors to give them the facts when nurses are giving them a different perspective.
Well, so we have 3 minutes for our first break. Buck, that brings up an interesting question. When you see something in a patient, how much of what's happening in your mind versus what they could do with their own minds in terms of survival or health or recovery, how important is it to be both?
Yeah, I mean, the attitude of the patient is really determines a lot of their outcome and quality of life. Whether you have, a diagnosis that's like, okay, you have 6 months to live, or it's just like, okay, you have a chronic disease. It doesn't matter. Like I've seen patients that don't have a positive attitude about it, and then those who do, and they're completely two different patients with the same diagnoses.
Faye, your thoughts on that?
I think that is very true. I see it as well. And nurses just deal with that differently. We get into much more of the, family dynamics and who's your support network, who are your wing people, who do you need to call in this situation? Whereas doctors really don't have the time to do that. They're in for a few minutes and out. So we kind of give them more background. It's a collaborative thing for sure when it works well.
Oh, absolutely. Guys, we have 1 minute to the first break. Buck, a thought for somebody who is facing something, whatever it might be. What would you say to those people?
Yeah, I think that it's just, it's hard to keep a positive. Everyone's like, oh, keep a positive mindset. Yeah, but when bad stuff has happened, it's really tough. That's when the toughest time is. But I think that to just make sure you don't almost like dispose of the days that you have, right? And I would try to live as best you can every day. You just don't, because sometimes you don't know how these diagnoses go. Like some people do very well, then all of a sudden they fall off a cliff and they have a tough time. But I think thinking about it too much, like what's going to happen, may ruin the time that you have. And so I think that's what I would think.
That's really profound, because the truth is we all have no idea how much time we have. My dear Joshua lost 2 dads, both to car accidents. So the truth is, every time that you're with somebody, that is the most important moment. However, I have a moment we have to go say hi to our sponsors. So we're going to take a quick break for a sponsorship. Please don't go away. You're listening to the Forbes Factor. We focus on health, wealth, and happiness. And right now, having these 2 very special people in my room is making me incredibly happy. Don't go away.
All right, we're clear.
All right. So Faye, have you ever met Ann Landstrom?
Only on Forbes Factor Live.
Yeah, she's gonna pop in and say hi. I've not talked to her in a while. We are still live on YouTube, so be careful what you say. I thought it would be fun to meet. Like I said, I had a guest drop out very last minute. My assistant called about an hour ago, and I'm like, huh. And I'm going through my phone, going, who do I love? And you guys both popped up. And then Ann called. And I said, okay, great. So Faye, how are you doing? How are you feeling?
I'm doing pretty well. My oncologist says I'm making medical history here. I'm holding my last transfusion now for 3 weeks, and levels are pretty good.
Excellent. Anything you want to share with Buck? Anything you want to ask him? He's pretty good at what he does.
Probably this is out of his domain. Yeah, Buck, I'm January 5th. I was
Well, wait, hang on a second. Before you say that, you can say it to YouTube or you can say it to the world. You want to say it to the world?
Say it to the world. Yep.
Yeah. So hang on a quick second, because I think this is, if you have the courage to go through it, yeah, I think this is an exciting, like I said, I don't get these two amazing people in the room very often. Buck, are you skiing at all? Let's change the subject.
30 seconds.
Yeah, I have been skiing. Skied last weekend. It was great.
What mountain? Where?
Deer Valley.
Oh, I'm going to be there for like 7 days, but with a no ACL and
20 seconds.
Oh,
I know.
so good.
I know. I'm thinking about a total knee replacement. I don't know. Ugh. All those
10 seconds.
It's live.
All right, here we go.
Thank you.
You are listening to the Forbes Factor. To call in with a question or comment, please call 1-866-472-5788. That's 1-866-472-5788. Or send an email to Forbes@ForbesRiley.com. Now, back to the show. Here's Forbes Riley.
Hey, everybody. You know, I'm a big believer that the wind will take you where it's supposed to take you, whatever that means. I don't think everything happens for a reason. I think things happen, you find the reason. I had a guest cancel, and I was going through my phone, and the two beautiful people who you see on the screen popped up, and I thought, this is right. Dr. Buck Parker is a trauma surgeon turned massive entrepreneur, dear friend, and a part-time television star. You can see him on a TV series called The Island. For 30 days, you ought to watch how he and these guys survive something I do not want to have to deal with. Thank you. I'm an urban New York City girl. If the Starbucks is not open, I don't know what to do with my day. And then there's Faye Brunel, who has been a beautiful student, friend, and an inspiration on so many levels. As I started my coaching company and watching this woman just tackle her fears of whatever that would be in terms of being extraordinarily successful. And I've watched her become so much more than that. So guys, welcome back to the program. Now, when we took a little break, Faye was going to share something with us. I'm going to give you the stage.
Okay. So I was bringing Buck up to date on my my most recent history is I was admitted to the hospital with low blood levels of the cells that I really needed to stay alive. And on the 5th of January was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. Turns out I have this rare genetic mutation that allows my white blood cells to leave my bone marrow not quite mature. And so they're not really functioning for me. I'm immune suppressed, and my treatment that I am choosing is to be at home, enjoy life for however long I have it, and I'm predicting it's another 30 years. Choosing natural treatments and hiking a mile a day.
And so you just said that your doctors are pretty much astounded, because this, I think, first of all, Faith, thank you for having the courage to say what's going on in your life. I think so many people will be quiet about that. I'm referring to my little dog. I had the most beautiful little Cocker Spaniel. And one day she was running in the backyard. We were doing some construction. She cut open her stomach on a rebar. And I couldn't find her. It turns out she was under my bed. And I think she'd gone over there to die. Like, she just knew she needed to be quiet and lay down and go, I'm out of here. It's not working. And I found her, scooped her up, put her all the insides back in and stitched her up. And she lived another 20 years. So she was fine. But sometimes we do that. We withdraw thinking that, oh, woe is me. And part of having Buck here too is just this amazing positive attitude. He didn't even know you were coming on the show. And his first instinct to talk about as a doctor was to live every day to his fullest. So there's a beautiful irony. So when you hear Faye say that, Buck, what are you thinking?
Yeah, sorry to hear that. But I think my comments are the same, right? You definitely don't want to give up the life that you have, however many days that is. You want to enjoy what you have, enjoy the people, that are in your life. I think that's most important. And I think we always talk about having, thinking positively, but the one thing that we see is, and you've probably seen this too, is that your social circle is really, your lifeline. So make sure you're not isolating yourself. I think a lot of people try to isolate themselves and don't want to talk about it, and I totally get that too. But yeah, I think make sure you have a robust social circle and you just have a good time and laugh and hang out with your friends and your family.
And ironically, as I said earlier, my beautiful man in my life lost two dads to car accidents. And so you do not know, this for everybody listening, you have no idea how much time you have. That's so when somebody says you have X amount of time, it's an interesting conversation. Buck, have you said that to people if they have X amount of time, or do you not say that?
Yeah, no, it's a really hard conversation because, we have data and we have books and we have research papers and we can have an idea of what the average quote unquote person has with this diagnosis. But, there's a cardiothoracic surgeon that I trained under, and he'd always say, if it in regards to complications we were talking about, and he'd say, well, you can tell people that, this complication, this surgery is 2% or 5% or whatever it is. But if they get it, it's 100% for them. Right. So it doesn't, like it sort of
Right.
makes sense to tell them, yeah, it's a low risk, but it still happens to somebody, and that person, it's 100%. And so I think the same thing with these, it's like, yeah, okay, this is the data, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you fall into any of the, you may fall into this side or that side. And most people fall in here, but there's still people over here. And so there's no reason to not think you shouldn't be living much longer than the average. So,
And that's what I get from Faye, and that's why I'm so excited and so enamored with her energy and her attitude, because she's deciding that not only am I going to take this on my own way, but to just live a healthier life. And so one of the things that's important just to talk about, because most people don't think about this. I watch how people eat. It's the most disgusting thing in the world. Between what you don't know is killing you, between fried and processed and all these crazy things. So Faye, talk to me about what you put in your body and how the holistic path that you've always been on. By the way, how old are you, my girl? Because I know you look 20 years younger than you are.
Because I have the blood of a 20-year-old, that's why I look younger. I have my trade secrets here. But I'm 72, and I feel like, I had a car accident 12 years ago that left me in 8 years of pain. Someone offered a supplement to me that gave me back my life. And for 3.5 years, I've had nothing but health. And I've always eaten organic. I'm a paleo gal, and I think everybody's body runs on a different kind of fuel. And I have a very close relationship with my body, and it tells me when I go off the rails. So, yeah.
So Buck, talk to me from a doctor, because the rumor is you guys only have like 4 hours of nutrition in the however many years you go to school. How important is what you eat?
yeah, I mean, it is important, but it's not everything. I think, if you can pick your genetics, it's easier. But there's certain things obviously that are you're genetically predisposed to certain problems, and other things that sort of are affected or you would develop if you were not eating optimally. Let's put it that way. So I think some people say eating's the food is everything, and other people say it's genetics is everything. I think it's somewhere in between.
Okay, and so then talk to me about supplements. I have been a supplement person my whole life. I hung out with Jack LaLanne, who said he had one supplement for every year he was alive. By the time he was 96, it was like every day was like this. No, it's true. And so, but I never know. And then you hear good supplements, bad supplements. What's your take on the concept of supplementing?
It's so hard. I haven't dove into supplementation, like the research of supplementation. But here's my mother is into supplements as well, and she's kind of always asked me this and that, and I'll tell you what doctors usually say is they're like, oh no, it's no good because there's no research, right? We don't have good data supporting that this actually does something. And I think that's we kind of get like a bad rap for saying that, because probably a lot of these things do something, but they may not have a research paper or a study designed in a way that we like, right? So it's very difficult for me to look at some supplements and say this is fine, even though I don't understand how this was tested, or I don't understand, or the way that we would test something, it wasn't done in that manner. Now that doesn't, so I think that this is where think for yourself comes in, because you have to say, do I know everything about research and studying supplements? Probably not. So if somebody else is doing something and they're claiming this, that they could be right. I just don't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense to me too. As a medical, I would not have gone with this line unless they had 32 peer reviewed. That got my attention. And I feel it's validated in my body.
Well, and that's what's interesting. You know, we always, as the pitch expert over here, sometimes it is about what works for you and telling your story,
Yeah,
and who that aligns with.
it's hard, for physicians. It also, you don't want to recommend something that, number one, doesn't work, and number two, costs the patient a lot of money, and then they don't get anything out of it. And so
Sure.
for us to be able to say, oh, we recommend this treatment, then we have to have studies in research that's done in a way that I understand, and I can conclusively say, like, okay, you're not going to waste your money on this.
But also, I just got to say, is it the medical profession's concept? I know this goes antithetical, but if they're not sick people, we can't make them healthy. You kind of need now. And how do you feel about that
Well,
statement?
yeah, I mean, I think we do have like a sick care, but not a health care right now, right? Like we're just treating mostly problems, and there's not a lot. I mean, there is an industry obviously to help people be healthier, but it's not healthcare.
Ooh, that's a pretty powerful quote. There's an industry to get you healthy, but it's not healthcare. Faye, how does that show up for you?
I think that's such a great opportunity for me to be an entrepreneur here, because that's what I'm talking about. I get a lot of people whose doctors say there's nothing else we can do. I get really excited by that statement because there's lots we can do. And let's just open the doors and look at some of the magic that the universe gives us.
Well, I just love that. So, but and then I want to move on from this. If you had to offer a piece of advice for people from mental to health, Faye, what would you say to somebody?
Well, I have this coach that I really believe in wholeheartedly, and she told me that there are no rules, that we are making this up as we go. And I'm going to murder your words here, but you dream it.
But she is referring to me, by the way, which is making me just smile and delight with freaking joy.
I know. When I was in the oncology unit, I heard Forbes saying there are no rules. And when I reached out to my friends and said, how do I survive this, from a 2-time and a 3-time survivor? And my friend said, the doctors are giving you the gift of their diagnosis and their prognosis and their suggestions, but healing is the gift you give yourself. And that's what I'm going on. I'm just like making that work for me personally. And I think everyone has to do that.
And the reason that I brought you on the program today, and I appreciate you showing up, is that I want everyone to hear that message. Doc, so Buck can theorize as a doctor all he wants, or you can talk to a patient who's creating miracles in her body and go, I'm going to be your cheerleader and enjoy and do all of this. Because the other thing it just inspires us is, if you don't know when your last day is, why are you wasting the ones that you have? Although is a caveat to that. If somebody said you had only one day to live, I often been said that I would run around naked, have oodles of sex and Haagen-Dazs ice cream, vanilla. But so I don't ever pretend it's my last day. That would be so weird.
Yeah.
Buck, it's your last day on the planet. What are you doing?
Oh, I don't know. What you said sounds pretty good.
Come on, Faye, we're all going to get naked and eat Haagen-Dazs ice cream and drip chocolate on each other.
It's good.
So, Buck, in response to that, Is there a way in the medical world, do you think, will it ever change, or is it just going to go down this rabbit hole of hospitals that are privately funded and it's about money, it's a business, it's drug pharma? What do you think what are we looking at here?
Oh, I don't know. Well, actually, so one of the things that we've been working on recently, the last 6 or 8 months is trying to bring in AI into healthcare and to augment physicians and nurse practitioners and nurses' decisions and help them, have somebody. So sometimes you're in a rural community and you don't have much help, or you just need more information or better information, or suggest something else or whatever. So I don't know, maybe that AI would, if we were able to use all of like our history and the world's medicine, maybe that would suggest other treatments.
That's interesting.
Other than like, the Western medicine.
Hey, are you documenting all that you're going through?
I remember the first time you asked me that question, and I said, Forbes, I don't have time to document. I'm trying to live it.
He's busy living.
Keep my head above water, but I am keeping notes because I'm talking to more people about this who are fascinated by the way I'm responding to this. And, I think it's a service to people to show them another way.
It's sort of like, so Josh was going for his last bodybuilding competition the end of this month. I said the same thing to him. Are you documenting this journey? Because it's halicious. He will probably win. He looks fitter than he's ever looked. He's like, I don't have time to do that. I'm like, well, that's too bad, because then it just becomes your journey. But if you could, for a second, just separate yourself just a little bit and leave breadcrumbs for other people, because I've never seen anyone, I didn't know anyone with your attitude before the diagnosis, and now I'm more inspired by you than ever. And that's just really important, because we all go through whatever we go through, and there's very few role models to go, hey, can you just show me that there might be another way? I talk about this all the time. When my twins, when I was 42, pregnant with 2 babies, and at one point they said, let's not do an amnio, but a nucotranslucent, which is an x-ray. They could see the baby on the bottom was completely healthy. They couldn't see anything on the baby on the top. Turns out she was a girl. She had her legs crossed, my kind of daughter. But they didn't know anything about her. So the nurse comes in and she's like, well, I have to share this with you. I'm like, what? She's like, well, you have an 82% chance of this and a 40% chance of this. And I think I remember in my hormonal nutness yelling at her to get out of the room. Doctor comes in, he's like, what's the matter? I said, I don't need to be told things that don't exist. I ascribe to a 50-50. She's either healthy or she's not. And either way, I'm keeping both babies, so leave. I don't need anything in my brain that's tampering with what I believe I'm creating. And again, might have turned out different. Or am I incredibly lucky? I'm not quite sure. But I think it was the attitude and the way we fed both kids, and that the way they became who they are. So I would just be mindful, and it's fun to have a nurse and a doctor talking from 2 sides of this about how to take care of your own personal health. Yes? Decisions that you make. Faye, you are a beautiful role model. I'm going to thank you so much for being on the program. How do we find out more about what you're up to? She does talk about a supplement line that I'm a huge fan of. And if you want to reach out to Faye, I'm wholly supporting her. Where do we go?
Well, I can be reached. My website for my elder care consulting is elderfrontiers.com. And then I can be found at Faye Bonnell on Facebook, Natural Health with Faye on Instagram.
And I will, you know what, I'm going to include all of these variety of links in our show notes. So anybody listening to this, if you're seeing it on YouTube and you go to Voice America, you can find us and all the notes about the show. All right, you guys, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this message.
All clear. Back in about 2 minutes.
Ms. Faye, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, this is really kind of fun to talk about this, because I want people not to accept the dismal straight out of the gate. Look at options.
Mark, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I think anytime you share your story, it helps somebody, somebody out there is going to have the same diagnosis and think, I don't have to have a bad day today, because Faye's not,
Oh, I love that. I don't have to have a bad day because Faye's not.
Oh,
It'll be good.
well, Buck's idea about living life to the fullest because you don't know when it's going to end is really kind of what's been put in my face recently. It's, I thought I was, going to live to be 105 because both my parents were elderly when they passed. And whoa, this is like a bad dream. Wake up from this. But everybody has the same. You're not guaranteed your next breath.
Yeah.
Well, I think the funny thing too, and I think you probably know from dealing with elder, that you always feel like you're 25, don't you? Inside your head, like it's not. I never had enough. The days are long, but then the years are pretty short. You're like, wait a second, I'm not
Coming
done. I'm
back
not
in
ready to
20
leave the party, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Faye, I want to thank you very much. I'm going to end with Buck. I'm going to do this segment, and Anne's going to come on. We're just going to talk about being silly in photos and all the entrepreneur stuff. But I love you so very much. I appreciate your time. And again, if you're feeling up to it, by all means, mastermind. I would love to hear the story.
Let's set a date. I'm
Yes.
ready.
All right, biggest mwah.
You are listening to the Forbes Factor.
Sweet.
To call in with a question or comment, please call 1-866-472-5788. That's 1-866-472-5788. Or send an email to
Now let's talk
Forbes
entrepreneurialism.
at ForbesRiley.com. Now back to the show. Here's Forbes Riley.
Hey everybody, this is a very special show. You usually don't get to have doctors and nurses and talking about health and all kinds of fun things. Miss Faye Brunel, if you want more information on her, I have that on my show notes. And I'm sitting with Dr. Buck Parker. Don't you? You know I have a doctorate now, right?
Yeah, I know.
I didn't have to go through the 16 years or cut open people or save lives. I'm just good at business.
It's all right.
Doesn't that seem kind of cheesy that I get one too? It's like I skirted around something.
Yeah, it's kind of cheating a little bit, but that's all right.
There you go. All right. So you have moved into this whole world of business, and Buck has a way of touching. He should be called Dr. Buck Gold Parker, because whatever he touches seems to turn to gold. Talk to me about Bitcoin and the future of crypto, because I'm still at the starter gate.
Yeah, I guess, really you talk about Bitcoin, but really it's the blockchain technology that I think is going to change a lot of the things that we do. So blockchain is just a ledger, and it's a secure ledger, and it's hard to break. It's hard to hack. It ridiculously hard, like nobody can do it. So I think in that case, if we start thinking about things that we maybe want to own or trade or swap or whatever, and there is not a way to hack that, then that's valuable. For instance, like a house, you have your deed to your house or whatever, and you want to sell it, and you don't necessarily have to go through a title company and all this other stuff. You could just swap it on blockchain as like an NFT. So that's what like an NFT would be. Like an NFT is a non-fungible token, which means it's unique, right? And so every house is unique because it has a unique address. So that's a perfect like application for it. So if you think about it in that way, then all of a sudden, like stocks, bonds, every piece of financial instrument could be an NFT in a way, or be traded on the blockchain with tokens and things like that. Cars.
Why is it I still have a little bit of a hard time conceptualizing what we're talking about? Is that typical, or is it just me?
No, it is typical. Yeah, but I think it's just it's almost like an accounting software, right?
Okay.
That if I have my Excel spreadsheet, I know that nobody can go in and change the numbers on it.
Got it. Okay. Currently, can you do a house on the blockchain? Is that being done?
I believe there are some. I'm not super into that part, but yeah, I believe that people are doing that.
So as I'm watching Bitcoin, because I had the dubious disappointment of having my daughter offer it to me when it was $100 and say, you should really invest in this. And I didn't, because I didn't know what she was talking about. And for those of you listening, when it went to 66,000 for that same $100 investment, you're like, man, I should have listened. It's hovering about in the 40s at the moment. It had gone up, it's gone down. You have your finger on the pulse of what's going on. What's your prediction? What's your thought about in particular Bitcoin and in overall crypto?
In particular Bitcoin, it has very distinct 4-year cycles. And most likely it's going to go up past, the 60 some thousand, maybe past 100 this time. And then it'll probably drop again. So when it started, it was extremely volatile. And then as it gets mature, it gets less volatile, right? And so the swings are less and less, but they're still pretty big right now, right? Like the last one was like 18 or 14 to like whatever it is now, 40. And before that was like 3 to 60. So it was big.
And so, but you were mining that. Can you help the beginner over here going, did you have to put on like a pick and a hat and go mining?
So, cloud computing, like you have your pictures on a cloud or something like that, right?
Right.
It requires a computer somewhere, right? So Amazon or Facebook or whatever, they got these warehouses full of computers, and they store data. They store your pictures, they store your emails or your documents, whatever. And so mining, we call it mining Bitcoin, but it's really just you're supplying computing power to the Bitcoin network so that all of these transactions, what if I give you 1 Bitcoin, that's, in the ledger somewhere, but a computer has to hold that. But also it's done in a way that it's secure and you can't go back and change it. And so in order to have that, you have this decentralized network of computers that's sort of like no one computer has all the data, or actually all of them have all the data, but no one computer can change it. Yeah.
What are you looking forward to?
So I'm looking forward to really hopefully increasing the efficacy and improving the safety in medicine.
I'm glad that you're going back to that.
Yeah.
It was very disheartening to hear that you were not doing, the profession that you set out to do. Obviously, it's great to have a break, but I love that you're going back to it, because I had this little place in my heart that's like, the system screwed up when they let this guy go. What are they thinking?
Yeah.
We need more Buck Parkers in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the last few years, it's kind of been leading up to this, but it's really been great. I found these great partners, and we're essentially just making different artificial intelligence algorithms for medicine. And I think I just believe that there's a lot of waste in medicine, and it's costs so much, and all this, the cost is so high. The safety could be improved with a lot of artificial intelligence. And if we improve the safety, then you'll improve the cost. Increase, like you ever go into the hospital? I don't know if you've been in the hospital for a couple of days. You'll get labs like every day, and do you need to get labs every day, or is it just like a cover your ass thing? If you go to ask doctors, how many studies do you order? What percentage of your studies do you order that are a CYA? And they're probably anywhere from 50 to 80%. So if you could cut even half of that out, you're going to save like billions, maybe trillions of dollars.
It just seems confusing, I guess, because there's no, the altruistic versus the we're going to sell pills for things world don't seem, and at the bottom line is a lot of money for everything.
Yeah.
So it seems a little like, who's really operating the game here?
Yeah. And that's sort of one of our goals is to sort that out. Like, okay, you guys are making a lot of money on these pills. Are you really helping people?
Interesting. And so that is really interesting. What I was going to say something to you about. So another interesting kind of crazy thing that happened is I recently went to go get some insurance, and they went through, I guess, this master medical record. Even though they ask you to fill out everything, they double check. And I'd gone for a heart scan, and the doctor prescribed a drug to lower my heart rate. And the next thing you know, I get a report going, no, it shows that you have heart disease and you've been prescribed this drug. And I'm like, well, no, that's not true. It was a one-time pill I went back and forth over and over again, apparently. And I'm going to just tell people, be careful what you tell your doctor, because it will come back to hurt you.
Yeah, Yeah, insurance companies. And this is one of the things I really had a difficult time with too in medicine. I practice both as an independent business and as an employee. And when you're an independent business, it's really scary to see how much control and power the insurance companies have over everything. And they're not fair. they will lie, cheat, and steal in order to get what they want. And it's even difficult for me to understand how they run things. And I've been in the system for like 20 years. And so for regular people that, all of a sudden you have to deal with healthcare and insurance and things like that, it's like super scary. And so those are other things that we want to target. If we can decrease the cost of healthcare overall, by trillions of dollars with all this technology, then maybe the US can have like universal healthcare, or at least pay for most of the people that can't afford it. And then maybe you have another type of tier or something like that. I don't really know, but at
Well,
least
you mentioned other countries. Have you practiced or been around other countries and looked at their healthcare?
I've done some medical missions. I've done, I've been to Canada, and I can't say I know the healthcare system really well. I certainly have friends there, practice there, stuff like that. There's good and bad for everybody, I think. I think in the US, if you have money, it's great. If you don't, then it's tough. It can be tough. I think in Canada, it's you may not be getting a procedure because of your age, or because of the type of procedure. You may have to wait 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, whereas here you get that procedure, in a couple weeks or something like that. So there's plus and minuses for both.
Do you see AI doctors? Can you see that as a future? Like when you go and you tell your doctor.
Yeah, I think that I hope it would be augmentation. And so you would have a doctor, but they would have help with AI information. And to make sure that physician, we're human and we can only get so much information in our brain. And
Well, no, wait, but that's an interesting point. If you're not human and you've got all the medical information that's ever been accessible to anybody at your fingertips, I mean, I'm watching how fast chat can write a story for me in any language I want.
Yeah.
That might be more efficient to see an AI doctor.
Well, I think that's and that's why I say augmentation, because those two together, the human doctor and AI together, I think is a good combination. I don't think AI by itself is good, because you could ask AI a lot of stuff and it's incorrect, right? Like ChatGPT, it can be incorrect. You could ask it to do math problems and it's incorrect. So not that it would be incorrect in the future, but I think that for us to have a human physician to understand the human condition and to talk about those things like, okay, well, you have 6 months to live. We have these treatments, but that's not your only options. What do you want to do? How do you want to live your life? What kind of quality you want? Who do you want to see? Things like that. Probably AI is not going to be able to sort of sort that out with by itself.
So, because we're going to come to the end of this real quick. So my dear friend Faye got a message that said, you've got X amount of weeks to live. She's brave enough to come on the show, and I love that she's outlived what they said, which has been great. Somebody says that to you. What do you do with that information?
Because I'm in the system, and I know certain things and I know certain people, I take it to who I know and who I think is the best and get their opinion. And I've done this before. Actually, broke my heel, and I went to one doctor and he was like, "Oh, definitely need a surgery. I'm the best guy there is, blah, blah, blah." And I sent that scan over to eight more orthopedic surgeons. They all said, "Oh man, I wouldn't do that if I was you. Like, that's a rough surgery. I'm not sure you're going to get a lot out of it, blah, blah, blah." And that's sort of how I treat everything. I don't necessarily go by one person's recommendation and try and sort out who I trust, who I like, who.
Let's assume that it's, well, I got 2 minutes though. Let's assume that it's real, because I got 1 minute. But Buck Parker knows he's got 4 weeks to live. What are you going to do? There's no way around it. That's it. 4 weeks, you're out of here.
Oh, I see. I mean, yeah, you just surround yourself with your family and friends and try to enjoy the time you have. That's it. And you try to, I think almost 4 weeks would be like a little bit relieving, because it's not very long, and you just say, okay, what do I want to do? I'm going to Disneyland. I'm going to go to the Swiss Alps. I'm going to, like, who's going with me? Let's have a good time. That's it.
Can I come?
I'll come visit you.
Well, I'm coming to visit you. All right, you guys. We're going to head off to Salt Lake City to say hi to Buck. I'm going to be there next week. And then he's going to be gone for Super Bowl, but I'm excited because I have fun news. Joshua, my hubby, is Arnold Schwarzenegger's body double, the younger Arnold, in the new State Farm commercial that's happening on the Super Bowl. So we're going to be celebrating. I don't really care who wins, 49ers, Kansas City. Who are you voting for? Who do you think is going to win?
I've always been a 49ers fan, so yeah, we're back, baby.
I'll take that bet because Mahomes seems to be the guy.
Go. All right,
you. Buck, I love you. Thank you so much for popping in, and I hope to see you in person. You guys watching the show, share this out if you've got somebody who's dealing in the medical systems, got questions or confusions. Buck's available on social media, and if you reach out to Faye and give her some love, we'd all appreciate that. Till I see you guys next time. Bye-bye, everybody.